Thank you, Mr. President. Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, Director for Field Operations and Technical Cooperation, distinguished representatives of member and observer states and of civil society. I thank the Director of the Field of Operations and Technical Cooperation, Ms. Marit Koenen, for her comments, for all the support received from her division and from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. It is my privilege as the Chair of the Board to make this statement on behalf of the members of the Board of Trustees of the Voluntary Fund for Technical Cooperation in the Field of Human Rights, with reference to the annual Board's report before the Council today, covering its 58th and 59th sessions held in May and November 2024, respectively. The Voluntary Fund is the second largest trust fund administered by the Office of the High Commissioner, and in 2024 it continued to be a key resource providing financial support for technical cooperation in implementation of international human rights norms and standards at national level to 56 countries and territories, 2 less than in 2023. This because of the funding constraints. The Board, which also constitutes the Board of Trustees of the Voluntary Fund for the Financial and Technical Assistance in the implementation of the UPR, provided advice and guidance throughout the year regarding the use of these two funds, including in rationalizing and improving the technical cooperation in the field of human rights provided, which remains as important as ever in resolving today's challenges. During the 58th session, which was held in Geneva, the Board focused on the supporting implementation of the pledges and other outcomes of the national, regional and global dialogues held by the Office of the High Commissioner as part of the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and to explore opportunities to advance partnerships with the business community, with the national human rights institutions, and with youth in particular to advance human rights education as a priority for technical cooperation identified in all these dialogues. On the subject of human rights education, the Board emphasized the need for the Office of the High Commissioner to develop a comprehensive and coherent approach to human rights education, one focused on children and youth, as highlighted in the World Programme for Human Rights Education, to truly foster the global human rights movement at the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights envisages in his vision statement. The Board recommends that the Office of the High Commissioner seek additional voluntary funds to provide technical cooperation in this area as an urgent response to the prevalence of anti-human rights discourse in many parts of the world. Based on the lessons learned from the excellent work of the Officer of the High Commissioner's Regional Center in Doha, the Board recommended that the Office of the High Commissioner adopts a regional approach to this renewed strategy on human rights education, reinforcing capacities to provide technical cooperation on human rights education at the regional level rather than at the headquarters only. In our report, you will find additional recommendations on enhancing partnerships with the business community, national human rights institutions, and national mechanisms for the implementation, reporting, and follow-up of recommendations by human rights mechanisms. We were pleased to hear of the numerous pledges made by member states in these areas, and was pleased to hear that the Office of the High Commissioner will be presenting a report on strengthening the capacities of the national human rights institutions and the national mechanisms to the Human Rights Council this year. We look forward to the outcomes of that report to continue our conversation with the Office of the High Commissioner on how to enhance technical cooperation in these areas. Excellencies, at its 59th session, held in Panama, the Board had the opportunity to learn of the excellent work of the Office of the High Commissioner that the Office of the High Commissioner is undertaking in Central America, both through the work of its regional office in Panama and through the work of its country office in Honduras, assisting countries in the region to respond to multiple local, regional, and global human rights challenges. As an interconnected world like ours, global and regional human rights deficits, deteriorating social and economic situations in neighboring countries, changes in climate brought about by interaction in combating environmental degradation, all have a deep impact on local communities. The Board witnessed how the Office of the High Commissioner Office in Central America is providing its expertise to help countries address the situations of asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants, focusing its efforts on facilitating access to justice in full complementarity with the work of the international organizations, of other international organizations in other areas of support. The Board was also impressed to hear how the Office of the High Commissioner Office in Honduras is assisting the national authorities there in addressing bad business and communities and economic practices, developing a new legal framework that shifts from a development model that provided benefits to a small minority to one that supports a more just and sustainable development model. Furthermore, the Board was pleased to see that the Office of the High Commissioner is helping tackle narratives that portray the false dichotomies between economic growth and human rights or security and human rights, encouraging the offices there to continue incorporating innovative tools to effectively address the dangers and detrimental effects of these narratives. Given the prevalence of anti-human rights messaging on social media and the popularity that these platforms enjoy among children and youth, our report recommends that the Office of the High Commissioner deploy specific efforts to address these groups throughout these platforms as a matter of urgency. Excellencies, during our 2 sessions in 2024, the Board noted the detrimental effects of decreasing resources for cooperation, changes in the prioritization of funds to address the multiple crises arising around the globe, and the continuing financial problems faced by the United Nations and its agencies. As our report states, now it is not the time for member states to stand back or withdraw into national interests, but rather to give fresh impetus to multilateral efforts to safeguard and revitalize human rights and the rule of law. Now it is the time to invest more, not less, in technical cooperation in the field of human rights. There are countless examples of how effective these efforts are, sometimes with as little investment as the deployment of a human rights advisor to a United Nations country team. The Board considers it essential that states contribute to multilateral efforts and is extremely grateful to those states that have continued to contribute to those, even more so that those who have increased their funding or made multilateral commitments. We thank the High Commissioner and his office for the excellent assistance provided to the Board in fulfilling its mandate with respect to the 2 trust funds. Thank you very much, Mr. President.